Hello, Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur family. This is Shae, founder and chief fire igniter of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. For the last few weeks, we've been talking about some of the most common questions and frequent objections that I receive off of the message in my book, Grace Over Grind, How Grace Will Take Your Business Where Grinding Can't. And I'm not going to be talking about that anymore. We're still going to be talking about concepts of grace over grind, but I'm not talking about objections or frequent questions. I'm just wanting to share just some things that the Lord really places on my heart to kind of go deeper into with the community. But here's what I want to talk to you about today. And that is make plans in your business, but hold them loosely. Sometimes this can feel like a really hard thing to do. It is so easy to make an idol out of our plans. It's so easy to make an idol out of our goals. And this happens even when you're like, hey, listen, this is led of God. This is what God's put on my heart. This is the picture that I see in my heart, or these are the words God spoke to me, or this is the word I received, prophetically, or, whatever. And it's really easy to take those goals and those plans and almost create an idol out of them, where we're so focused on those things. We're so focused on the plans that we put together because, it makes sense to be strategic. And there's this thing that we're looking to do. And here's the plan. And I've written down the plan and I've got my plan. And now I'm going to go execute on my plan. But if we look at Proverbs, I'm going to pull this out. Proverbs 16:1, it says, the preparations of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. I want to focus in on a couple aspects of this. The preparations of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. You'll hear me say often, if you have conversations with me, that God is the God of the outcome. Let God be the God of the outcome. I'm saying that to people I mentor all the time. Let God be the God of the outcome. Because we can make our plans, and those plans, it belongs to us to make those plans, to write those things out, to have those goals, to have those dreams, all of that. It's good. And that belongs to us, and we should do that. But the response to them, the answer to them, the success in them, all of that, the reply, it comes from God. And so if it comes from God, that's why it follows 16:3, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. So if we commit, and if you do a study on this, commit is like transfer the burdens of. So if you transfer the burdens of those business activities, of your plans, and you commit those to God, then, and we trust him with them, then it says in the word that our thoughts, meaning our intention, our plans, our imagination, they'll be established and they'll be perfected by God. So if God is the God of the outcome, then that means that even if we have our plans, we should hold them loosely, because as we are moving in our plans, that's why we're talking about being led and empowered by Holy Spirit. As we are moving in our plans, we always want to be sensitive to a new thought, a new direction, a course correction, a thing that wasn't what you intentionally planned. But if we make the plan the idol, because we have to do everything according to the plan, even when you feel like, oh, God gave me a blueprint and I'm writing it down and this is the plan. If you don't have sensitivity to the Lord as you move, if you don't allow him to be the God of the outcome, then you can very easily run off with a Holy Spirit led blueprint, so you believed, for that time, and run and take it and still do it in your own strength, and do it in your own strength based off of your own understanding, believing that you've got the fullness of the answer as you move, as opposed to being sensitive to Holy Spirit as you're moving, because he's the God of the outcome. I was looking up this scripture. I love when I have a scripture that I really like, I've got to go and read it in every translation. And it was so funny because sometimes, like the message version will be so plain. The message version has mic drop moments often. And this is what in the message version, it says, Proverbs 16, it says, mortals make elaborate plans, but God has the last word. Humans are satisfied with whatever looks good. God probes for what is good. Put God in charge of our work, then what you've planned will take place. Man, it says, Humans are satisfied with whatever looks good, but God probes for what is good. So he's a God of the outcome. So we have to submit all our plans to him. We have to be intentional about submitting our plans, yielding our plans for our businesses to him, because he is the God of the outcome. He is the one who establishes our thoughts. He's the one who fixes our thoughts on what is good, not what looks good, not what sounds good, not what Joe Blow Guru said is good, but what is good, right? So that's what we have to do. That's how we have to walk this thing out, is to always be sensitive to him. That goes for our goals. It goes for our dreams. It goes for everything. I was with, we just had our Igniters gathering over the last weekend. And Dr. Tony Robinson, who's one of our Igniters mentors and the prophetic strategist for Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, she was talking about that in the context of prophetic words as well. Like sometimes, you'll get a word and she's like, don't take that word, write it down, and then make an idol out of that word. You've got to sit with God on that thing. You've got to let God water it. Sometimes we'll take these things and it's like you write it down and you act like it's like cemented. It's like cemented and this is exactly it. And this is how it is. But yet there's so much that you'll discover in it through him, not outside of him, in him. So we have to do everything with him. Even if you feel like the thing that came to you, the plan, the dream, the strategy, the prophetic word, whatever came from him, you still have to walk it out with him. I'm so aware of this because listen, here's something I know. There can be things that God desires to see done on the earth, but we all have free will. So God can have something that's orchestrated that is supposed to happen a certain way, but because we have free will, all the pieces have to line up. But there's a whole lot of people operating in free will that may or may not be led of the Lord in a particular circumstance or situation, or have their own stuff that keeps them from moving or doing the thing, answering the call, making the call, sending the email, opening the door, closing the door, whatever. And because they're not operating in the thing that they're supposed to do, it can lead to a delay, a shift, or whatever. But because God is the God of the outcome, he can work things out a whole other way. He can move on the heart of somebody else, whoever's willing, whoever's listening, whoever's paying attention. And so we can't be so hard set on just this one thing. We have to know that God is the one who's the orchestrator of it all. And we have to trust him to be that and not be so caught up in things happening a certain way. That has absolutely been our journey here with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur as well. 7 years in, there's decisions we made where it was like, man, I swore that's what I saw and that's what it was. I believe that's what he said. And I went and I did it. Didn't work out the way I thought. There's still things that I know are fact, because when God said it, it is done. It is fact that I still haven't seen, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't telling the truth. It doesn't mean it's not truth, but there's some things that still have to line up. There's still some things that have to take place. He's the God of the outcome. So I hold my plan loosely. But it's important to make the plans. Again, what did the word say? It says that the plans of the heart, they belong to man. It is up to us to show initiative to make them, right? It's not about sitting and waiting for like all these instructions. Like we have to engage. We have to take a step. We have to engage. We have to do this thing with God. So we want to make plans. That is the right thing to do. And that is for us to do. Just make sure you're holding them loosely. Let's see, Ryan, you started the devotional on YouVersion. Awesome. So glad you're enjoying it. By the way, Ryan, there are 7 plans. We have 7 plans on the YouVersion Bible app. If you go to our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com, right there in the menu, I think it's in like the resources. I think it says resources or courses or something like that. I don't know what it says on the website. In that menu, you'll see that there's an option that says YouVersion plans, and you'll see a link to all 7 of them. So after you enjoy that one, if you want 6 more, you can go and enjoy those. But I'm so glad that you're enjoying them. Let's see. Are there any questions? Let's see. I'm going through here, just seeing if there's any questions. Kathy said, There are seasons, and it's so easy to forget. That is so true. There are seasons. That's what the word says. There's a season. And so sometimes you're in a season where it's, it's seemingly slow. You're just being diligent and building. There's some seasons where you're supposed to sit down somewhere. You had to take a break for a little bit. That's okay. There's seasons where it's, quite the accelerated pace. There's those seasons. There's seasons when everything just seems to be coming together. Like it just everywhere you look, it's just all coming together. It's the puzzle pieces are coming. It's like the favor of God's all over it, and you're just moving. There's those seasons. It's like, but in all of the seasons, we just have to, this is why everything intimacy with God, we just have to make sure that we are with God. But it's about maintaining just that active awareness of his presence, which is resting in him, right? We want to operate that way all the time in every season. And quite honestly, it's in those seasons that seem slow or seem like, okay, I know we have these plans. I know that this is what God showed me, but I'm not seeing it yet. Man, in those seasons, it's like the easiest thing to do is hop off the boat, run in the other direction if you are not maintaining intimacy with God in those seasons. That is the surefire way to look at other people, be in comparison, flip onto something else because it's like, oh, this isn't working, so I'll do this. Oh, I'm about to get on a sideline point. So yesterday, sometimes the Lord, I have this thought and I can't shake the thought. And I know I'm supposed to say something on social media about it or something, and I don't want to because, people get bent out of shape about stuff or whatever, or think you're saying something to be some kind of way when you're not. And I just couldn't shake it. And it was just this thing about being a serial entrepreneur. And so, I just kind of had a thought to myself about how I've met a lot of people who say, like, proudly with a label, like they're a serial entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with being a serial entrepreneur if that's what you're supposed to be. But what I have found is that I will say it 9 times out of 10, when I come across someone who's saying they're I'm talking about believers that say that they are a serial entrepreneur, what's actually happening is that they are doing the most. They're doing too much. They are doing like 3 and 4 businesses. Why? Not because they have a new idea. They're starting something with the intent of growing it and then, giving it its care and feeding and then finding other people to keep going with it. No, that's not what's really happening. They're not growing something to then sell it and then move on to something else. That's not what's happening. What's happening is they have a big vision given to them by God, and they are impatient, distracted, upset because they're comparing to other people, and they hop onto something else with the belief that, okay, well, I need to do this. And then when that's not working fast enough, okay, let's do this again. Because entrepreneurs, listen, we're going to have lots of ideas. All of us, we're going to have lots of ideas. Some of us more ideas than others. That's not going to stop. But just because you have an idea doesn't mean this is an idea for me to go do something with. And just because God's giving you an idea doesn't mean, oh, okay, I need to do this now, even though I've got this other thing. Oh, and I'm doing this, and now I'm going to do this other thing. That's a grind. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to do all these businesses, and I'm going to start all these new ideas. I'm going to do this and say that it's because I'm a serial entrepreneur. And that's not true. That's not even the truth. There's no truth in it. You're not a serial entrepreneur. You just got to get back with God. Get back with God about the thing that he has placed on your heart that feels too big for you to do in your own strength, because it is, and get with him and do the next step. Do the next right thing. And just move one step at a time in faith by his grace. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Let me see what you guys are talking about over here. Okay, here's a question. Justine asked, how can you do when you feel super down that you don't know what to do, when you feel you should be doing more, but you don't know where to start? Okay. I'm not exactly sure what that first thing is, but I'm going to answer this the best as I know what you're saying here. But when you feel like you should be doing more, but you don't know where to start? I mean, it's very common to be in a position of not knowing your starting place. But I'm a big proponent of taking small steps. and allowing God to clarify and to provide more insight and keep moving as you move. I'm not talking about gigantic steps, especially in the beginning when you just don't really know, but to take small steps. A lot of people are like, I don't know. I've been praying. And I am like, okay, well, you've been praying. Have you been listening? What do you feel the Lord saying to you? And then a lot of times the next thing is, oh, well, I just don't know. Was it from God? Was that God or was it me? I don't know if it was from God. And I'm like, let's assume for a moment it's from God. You've been hanging out with him, right? So let's just assume for a second that that's from God, and you take a step in that direction and see how you're feeling as you're staying with God as you go. We have this weird perception that we have to have like 50 steps out before we move. And it's just not true. It's not true. He might just say, go do this one little thing. This whole thing, Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, started with a word from the Lord that was, it's a community, it's a movement, and it starts with a book. Okay. I don't really know what a Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur is, but okay, Lord, a community, a movement that starts with a book. Starts with a book. I'm supposed to write a book about something. I don't even know what that is. What is a Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur? Have I been one? I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but have I been a Kingdom Driven one? What is that? How do I start with that? How are we going to start with a book? You've got to take a step at a time. So then it became sitting at his feet and allowing him to open up our eyes to in ways that we have been kingdom driven, in ways that we haven't, and how to posture our hearts towards doing that and what that looks like and the best way that we could at that time to write that book, to start the community. So sometimes it's just like just taking one small step. For us, it was the one small step. Okay, that word from the Lord was it's a community and movement. It starts with a book. So we don't know how that's supposed to work since we write in a book about something that we don't feel like we know a lot about. But what can we do? We can start talking to you about it. We can start talking to you, Lord, about this book and what's supposed to be in this book and what we're talking about, what we're doing, and start hearing you concerning this thing. We can do that. But we didn't have to worry ourselves about, and that was months before Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur actually started the community, us actually releasing. That was months before that. But we could take one step. I still, to this day, when I see something like where I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's kind of big. I'm not exactly sure what to do with that. It's like, what's one small thing? What's one small thing that I can do with this right now, Lord? Just one small thing. And whatever comes to my heart, I go do that because there's intimacy with him. I'm not scared that if I take a step forward on something and it doesn't take off, that he's disappointed in me, he's mad at me. I don't feel that way. I really feel like, no, he loves me. He wants the best for me. And I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to keep moving. And I'm also going to maintain a sensitivity to his leading and for him to open up new doors. A lot of stagnation is just rooted in fear, you guys. It's just rooted in fear that God is not who God is. That he's not a loving father, that he doesn't have the absolute best in mind and isn't mad when something's not quite perfect. And that there's no like condemnation and moving in the things that you feel like he's put on your heart. A lot of it stems from that, just from that fear. So I encourage anyone who says, I don't know where to start with something small. Be before the Lord. Seek a thought. A lot of times when people ask this question, they've already been before the Lord and they've already got a thought. They just haven't moved on it. I'm real talk. I can't say that's you, Justine, but I can tell you I've mentored a lot of people and I've had a lot of conversations. And a lot of times God's already spoken. They're just scared to move and make one small step because they feel like they need to have 10. Let's see. Any other questions? I've got a few more minutes before we go here. Let's see. Jerry asked, okay, so she's in a shift. She's in the middle of a deep shift. How do you keep moving without doing things outside of his will? Okay, so so I don't have a lot of context here, but if you're in the middle of a deep shift and it's a deep shift that is supposed to be like, stop immediately what you're doing and now get with me and start doing this new thing and then release the new thing, then do that. Go deep into what the shift is supposed to be and do it. But if that's not what you're sensing, if you're feeling like he's doing this work and I'm in the midst of a shift, but there's still things that need to be taking place and still need to be going, then do those things that need to go. I'll tell you about how there was a shift that took place in KDE. It was 2015 when Antonina Gear, our co-founder, when she left, when God was like, you know what? You've done your part, and he shifted her in a different direction, right? And when she left, I didn't know what to do because she was gone and I didn't foresee that I'd be doing it without her. Okay. And so it was like, all right, there's a shift coming. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what this looks like, but I know that there's something happening. And I took a break. But I didn't stop everything. I let the bare minimum things keep going. I also had help from a few people at that time who were willing to just do a couple of things to kind of keep activity moving, even though it wasn't, quick. It was just kind of maintaining while I was seeking the Father's heart for, first of all, what am I doing? What's next? I know you're doing something new here. So what are we doing? That was a significant shift. And that required me taking a step away, but still allowing some things to take place. There was a shift that happened in the first year of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, where we had been going and going and going and doing the best we could. And at one point, like we were doing these virtual conferences. I talk about this in the book, Doing Business God's Way. We were doing all these virtual conferences and all that stuff. And things were fine. And then we did this virtual conference and it was like crickets, like nobody, there was like 2 signups. Like we had a couple thousand people in the community at the time and 2 people signed up. What in the world? We knew something was up, something's wrong. What's going on here? And we had to fast and pray because we knew that we were absolutely at the end of ourselves. We had no other thoughts, no other ideas, no idea where to go. We knew there had to be a shift because we knew that it was always supposed to be producing something. So if all of a sudden there's no fruit, there's no production, what's up? We're missing something. There's no fruit, not like a little, like nothing's happening here. So what's going on? Because we were moving and all of a sudden something abruptly shifted. So we had to go seek God and we fasted and we prayed. And from that time of fasting and praying, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in my closet. Sometimes it's the only place you can have quiet. And I was in my closet and I was praying. And that's when God started talking to me about fire. And he started taking me through the word. He had me doing this whole like deep word study on fire. It's where my name, Chief Fire Igniter, came from. And he was talking about all these various things that fire represents in the word and how it connected to this movement that, at that time, we didn't have a whole lot of clarity around. And it was at that point where it's time for a shift. And so now it's time to shift. And he's given us some insight into what this thing looks like a little bit. Do we stop doing everything we're doing completely? No. We kept moving on some basic things as we were getting clarity, deeper levels of clarity on those things and just doing the best that we could. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful, but I have definitely experienced some significant shifts just in the 7 years of doing this and significant shifts from the perspective of the work I was doing before, the business I was in and what I was up to before Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur started. Lots of shifts. And he's with us in the shifts. I've got a couple more minutes. So let me just see if I can find one more question too. Wow, there's so many comments. So if I miss you, I'm sorry. Going through, just looking for a question. If there is one more. Precious says, so much confirmation right now. That's awesome. I'm so glad. Brandy said, I got 3 simple words from God as well when he interrupted my life. Yes. Yeah, Brandy, sometimes he doesn't give you a whole lot. He gives you a little bit. But Jesus, it's so awesome to me when he gives us a little bit, because what that does is it invites us to engage more with him, to explore more, for him to reveal more. Some of the most beautiful times were in the times of having the least amount of information that was like an invitation to hang out with me. Let's explore this some more. As you're moving, let's see what else we've got. Some of those were the most beautiful times. So enjoy it. Enjoy the ride of 3 simple words, because God can do a whole lot with 3 simple words. Ask me how I know. Very good. Okay, Justine confirmed that she is the kind of person who needs all the steps before moving. Justine, I will tell you right now, you can't be the person who needs all the steps before moving, not just as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur in general. You can't need all the steps before moving. And certainly as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur, you can't. Like if you think about think about all these folks in the Bible and how much they had before they had to move. It's like you want to receive the promises of God. You want to see what God's going to do. You want to bring glory to him. It's like you got to do it without all the steps. You have to. You've got to go and take a step and see the next place where he's going to take you. That's like a core requirement, Justine. So just embrace it and just know that you can do it without fear because God is with you. All right, let's see. Okay, here's a good question. I'm going to answer this. This will be my last one. Okay, Kristen asked, what about if you are multi-passionate? There is so much that I feel led to talk about now that I think about all the pieces go together. I'm struggling with the how. Okay, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with being multi-passionate. I mean, multi-passion is good, but what do you do with the multi-passion? So I got a lot of things that I'm interested in. You know, I love business. I love talking about the kingdom. I love business. You know, but I love other stuff too. Right now, the season has been to be focused. I mean, before I was doing Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, I was in real estate. I was consulting people in real estate, advising people in real estate. I enjoyed that. You know, I wouldn't say I was passionate about it, but I enjoyed it. But there was some other work that I was doing that I really, really enjoyed. And when God called me to shift, I just had to shift. And I did. And I'm having the time of my life doing this. And then it's taken years of focused effort here until the Lord starts to say, okay, dream some more. There's more for you. There's more for you. So more recently, I've been like, okay, there's some things outside of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur that I really want to explore. The first of those was my husband and I are about to launch this podcast called This Kingdom Life, because there's a lot of topics that it's like our pillow talk, you know, there's a lot of things that we talk about, my husband and I talk about, that I want to have conversations about more broadly, but I don't, because they don't necessarily fit into the context of what we're doing with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. And I don't want to get, you know, off the path. But it's like I've got the permission to explore something else, but I'm not going to not be focused on this, but I'm going to take some steps and just some little ways to explore some of the other things that God's placed on the inside of me and to release those and see where those things go. So it's totally cool to be multi-passionate, to have things, but when God's calling for focus in an area, then focus unapologetically, knowing that you're not losing time on the other things. When it's time for that thing, it'll be time for that thing. And if it's not, it's not, and it's okay. All right, you guys, I got to run. If you haven't read Grace Over Grind, that's this one. Grace Over Grind, How Grace Will Take Your Business Where Grinding Can't. And then this one is The Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur's Guide, Doing Business God's Way. I recommend them both. Let's see, any other announcements before I go? Let's see, our next round of Igniters is starting just in a couple of days. It's too late to start for July, but if you're interested in our mentoring program, the next round starts in October. But right now and through the end of July, you can actually register and take advantage of the three payment option. Pretty much every month we remove one of the payment options until we get down to that last month. And so the earlier that you register for Igniters, the more flexible the arrangements you can make in terms of how you cover the investment for Igniters, which is $495. So I want to encourage that. And those who want to also just spend some time face-to-face with your family of kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, we are going to be in Kansas City, Missouri, doing KDE Live. It is not a conference. It is absolutely an encounter. That is the best way. After we experienced that in April in Atlanta, the only word that I can use to describe KDE Live is an encounter. And so enjoy. So come out, hang with us in Kansas City, Missouri. It's going to be a great time together. If you want details about that, you can go to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/live. And for those who want information about the mentoring program, it's at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/mentoring. But everything's right there on the website. And that's it. So I'll look forward to talking to you more next week. And love you guys. You all take care. Bye-bye.